Clara pressed the knife harder against the stranger's chest. Her hand shook. 14 years old, 5 days without sleep, and she'd already cut one man who tried to take from them. Behind her, 6 children huddled in the frozen wagon. The baby had stopped crying 2 days ago. That silence scared her more than the blizzard, more than the stranger, more than dying. "Please," he said, "I ain't here to hurt you." But her father had said the same thing, right before he walked into the storm and never came back. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far Clara's story travels. Subscribe now and stay until the end. Let me tell you how 7 orphans and 1 broken man found something worth living for. "Get back," Clara's voice cracked. "I swear to God I'll do it." The stranger didn't move. Snow swirled around his shoulders, pouring through the wagon's torn canvas. His eyes, gray-tired, old, somehow stayed fixed on hers. "I believe you," he said quietly. "I seen what you did to Henderson's arm. Man still bleedin' back at his wagon. He tried to take our blanket. I know, he deserved worse." That caught her off guard. Adults didn't say things like that. Adults made excuses for each other. Closed ranks told children to mind their place. "Then why are you here?" Clara demanded. "What do you want?" "I want to get you and them young'uns out of this wagon before you freeze to death." "We're fine." "You ain't fine. That baby behind you, she's still breathing." Clara's heart seized. She didn't turn around, didn't take her eyes off the stranger, but her ears strained for the sound of Rosie's breath. Silence. Then a tiny wheeze. Faint. Too faint. "Her lips are turning blue," the stranger continued. "I seen it before. Seen it take children in the night when folks thought they was just sleepin'. You got maybe 3 hours before she don't wake up." "You're lying." "I wish I was." Tommy's voice came from behind her, hard and angry. "Clara, he's right. Rosie looks bad. Real bad." Clara felt something crack inside her chest. She'd been holding them together for 5 days. 5 days of cold and hunger and watching adults die or run. 5 days of being mother and father and protector to 6 children who weren't even her blood. She couldn't crack now, not yet. Not until they were safe. "Who are you?" she asked the stranger. "Name's Silas Brennan. Got a ranch 3 miles north. Fire's still burnin'. Food in the pantry. Beds enough for all of you." "Why would you help us?" Silas was quiet for a moment. Then he crouched down slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. "Because I found another child once," he said. "Years ago. Didn't help her in time. Been carrying that ever since." He met Clara's eyes. "I ain't looking to carry 7 more." "Clara." Jonas touched her shoulder. Her 12-year-old brother, the smart one, the one who read books and calculated odds. "Clara, we have to go." "I don't trust him." "I know. But Rosie's dying." The words hit like a fist. Clara looked at the knife in her hand, at the stranger waiting in the snow, at the 6 children depending on her to make the right choice. What was the right choice? Trust a stranger and maybe survive, or stay here and definitely die? "If you try anything," Clara said slowly, lowering the knife, "I'll kill you. I don't care how big you are. I don't care if I die doing it. I'll take you with me." "Fair enough," Silas said. "Now let's move." Getting 7 children out of a frozen wagon should have been simple. It wasn't. Tommy refused to leave until Clara did. Maggie wouldn't let go of Alice's hand. Sam kept asking questions nobody had answers to. And Clara wouldn't let anyone touch Rosie. "I got her," she snapped when Silas reached for the baby. "Don't touch her. You can barely stand." "I said I got her." Silas stepped back, hands raised. Smart man. Clara filed that away. He knew when not to push. "Fine, but we need to move fast. Storm's getting worse." "We all go together," Clara said. "Nobody gets left behind." "My horse can't carry." "Then we walk, all of us, together." Silas looked at her for a long moment. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or respect. "All right," he said. "We walk." Tommy fell into step beside Silas, glaring up at the man who was nearly twice his height. "I'm watching you," the boy said. "You try anything with my sisters, I'll gut you like a fish." "Maggie ain't your sister, neither is Alice or Rosie. They're mine now, same as Clara and Jonas." "Fair enough." Silas glanced down at the boy, 10 years old, half-starved, ready to fight a grown man with nothing but fury and a pocket knife. "What happened to your real folks?" Tommy's jaw tightened. "Pa got drunk and walked off a cliff. Ma died of fever a week later. Maggie and me was alone for 2 days before Clara found us." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Pa was mean. Hit Ma when he drank. Hit us too." Tommy's voice went flat. "I ain't sorry he's dead. I'm just sorry he didn't fall sooner." Silas absorbed this in silence. The boy's anger made more sense now. Wasn't just fear, it was experience. Tommy had learned early that men couldn't be trusted. "Your pa ever hit you?" Tommy asked suddenly. "No. My pa was a good man. Died in the war." "What about you? You ever hit anyone who didn't deserve it?" "No." "How do I know you ain't lying?" Silas stopped walking. The wind howled around them, driving snow into their faces, but he crouched down until he was eye level with the boy. "You don't," he said simply. "You don't know nothing about me except what I do. So watch me. Watch how I treat your sisters. Watch how I treat Clara and Jonas and that baby. And if I ever do something that reminds you of your pa, you take that knife of yours and you use it." Tommy stared at him, searching for the lie. "Why would you say that?" "Because I'd rather you trust your own eyes than my words. Words are easy. Actions ain't." Something shifted in Tommy's expression. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of it. "Fine," the boy said. "I'll watch." "Good. Now keep moving before your sisters freeze." Maggie stumbled. She was 8 years old, exhausted, and she'd been holding Alice's hand for so long her fingers had gone numb. "Come on," she whispered to her silent companion. "Just a little further. Clara said just a little further." Alice didn't respond. Hadn't responded in days. Not since their mother died. Maggie remembered the exact moment Alice stopped talking. They'd been huddled in the wagon listening to Mama's breathing get slower and slower, and then nothing. Just silence and the wind, and Alice's eyes going empty like someone had blown out a candle behind them. "Alice, please." Maggie's voice cracked. "Say something. Anything. I'm scared and I can't." Alice squeezed her hand. That was all. Just a squeeze. But it was something. A tiny thread of connection in all this cold and dark and dying. "Okay," Maggie whispered. "Okay. We're okay." Sam rode on Silas's shoulders, his small hands gripping the man's collar. "Are we gonna die?" he asked. "No." "How do you know?" "Because I ain't gonna let you." "But how do you know you can stop it?" Silas didn't answer right away. The boy was 6 years old and he was asking questions most adults couldn't face. "I don't," Silas finally said. "I don't know for certain, but I'm gonna try with everything I got. That's all any of us can do." Sam thought about this. "My pa used to say tryin' don't matter, only winnin' matters." "Your pa was wrong. That's what Ma said too." Sam's voice dropped. "Right before she died." The words hung in the frozen air between them. Silas felt something tighten in his chest. The old grief, the familiar weight of loss. "Your ma sounds like she was a smart woman," he said quietly. "She was. She was the smartest person I ever knew." Sam paused. "Alice ain't talked since Ma died. I think she's broke." "She ain't broke. She's grievin'." "What's the difference? Broke means can't be fixed. Grievin' means you just need time." "How much time?" "Much as she needs." Sam fell silent, processing this. Then, "Are you grieving too? You got that look, like Alice, like something inside you went quiet." Silas's throat tightened. 6 years old, and this boy saw right through him. "Yeah," he admitted. "I'm grieving too." "For who?" "My wife, my baby. They died a long time ago." "Do you still miss them?" "Every day." "Does it get better?" Silas watched the snow swirl around them, felt the weight of the child on his shoulders, thought about all the empty years behind him and all the uncertain ones ahead. "Not better," he said finally, "but different. You learn to carry it without falling down." Clara's arms burned. Rosie weighed almost nothing, barely 7 pounds of bones and skin and fading breath. But Clara had been carrying her for miles, and her muscles screamed for relief. "Let me take her." Silas appeared beside her, his voice low. "Just for a minute. You can watch me the whole time." "No." "Clara, you're gonna drop her." "I won't." "You're shaking so hard you can barely walk." "I said no." Clara's voice cracked. I can't let her go. I promised Mama. Right before she died, I promised I'd keep them safe. All of them. I can't. You have kept them safe." Silas moved closer, not reaching for the baby, just standing near enough that Clara could feel his warmth. 5 days in this cold, and all 7 of you are still alive. That ain't luck. That's you. But if I let go now, if I let someone else carry her, then you trust me for 5 minutes while you catch your breath. That ain't failure. That's wisdom." Clara looked down at Rosie's face. Blue lips, shallow breath, so small, so fragile, so close to slipping away. "What if she dies while you're holding her? Then I'll give her back to you before she takes her last breath. I swear it." "What if you can't? What if it happens too fast?" Silas met her eyes. "Then I'll carry that weight for the rest of my life, same as I'm carrying the others." Something in his voice, the raw honesty of it, the pain beneath the words, broke through Clara's defenses. "What others?" she asked. "My wife. My daughter. They died together, and I couldn't save neither of them." Silas's jaw tightened. "I've been alone 5 years, Clara. 5 years of waking up in an empty house, eating meals by myself, talking to nobody but my horse. I ain't asking to replace what you lost. I'm asking for a chance to make sure you don't end up like me." Clara stared at him. This man, this stranger, had ripped himself open in front of her, shown her the wound that never healed, and asked for nothing but the chance to help. Nobody had ever done that before. Slowly, carefully, she transferred Rosie into his arms. The baby didn't wake, didn't cry, just kept breathing those shallow, desperate breaths. "Thank you," Silas said quietly. Clara nodded, not trusting her voice. They walked on. The ranch appeared through the snow like a promise. Dark windows, solid walls, a roof that wouldn't collapse. Safety. Warmth. Survival. "Inside," Silas commanded. "Quick, Jonas, you know how to build a fire." "Yes, sir." "Do it. Fast. Tommy, there's blankets in that chest. Get them out and wrap the little ones. Maggie, you and Alice sit by the hearth soon as the fire catches." "Clara." "I know." She took Rosie back from his arms, holding the baby against her chest. "I'll stay with her. We need to warm her slow. Too fast, and her heart might—" "I know." Clara's voice was sharp. "I know what I'm doing." Silas nodded. He'd expected pushback. Would have been disappointed if she'd just blindly followed orders. The fire caught within minutes. Jonas had skill. Another thing to file away, another thread of who these children were. Tommy distributed blankets with military efficiency, checking each sibling before allowing himself to sit down. And Clara. Clara positioned herself closest to the flames, holding Rosie against her skin, sharing her body heat with the baby, who might already be too far gone to save. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on, little one. Don't quit. Not now. Not after everything." The room fell silent except for the crackle of flames and the wind howling outside. 7 children, 1 stranger, 1 fragile hope. An hour later, the fire had burned down to embers, and 6 of the 7 children slept. Clara didn't. She sat in the chair nearest the hearth, watching Rosie's chest rise and fall, counting each breath like a prayer. Silas settled into the chair across from her. "She's breathing better. Color's coming back." "I know. I've been watching." "You need to sleep." "I can't." "Clara." "Every time I close my eyes, I see my mother." Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. "Frozen. Just frozen. She went out to gather wood and I was supposed to go with her, but Tommy was sick and Maggie was crying and I thought I'd let her go alone just this once." She stopped. Her hands trembled in her lap. "When I found her, she was already stiff, already cold, already gone." Clara looked up, her eyes red but dry. I couldn't even close her eyes. They were frozen open, looking at nothing. Silas was quiet for a long moment. "My wife died in my arms," he finally said. "I held her hand while she bled out after birthing our daughter. Doctors said they couldn't stop it. Said I should say my goodbyes." Clara looked at him. "The baby lived 3 days," Silas continued. 3 days of me not sleepin', not eatin', just holdin' her and prayin' for a miracle that never came. And when she died," his voice roughened, "when she died, I buried them both on the hill behind this house, and I swore I'd never let myself care about anyone again. But here you are. Here I am." Silas met her eyes. "Caring about 7 children I don't know, because the alternative is watching you freeze to death 3 miles from my door and carrying that weight on top of everything else." The fire crackled. Someone Maggie probably murmured in their sleep. "I ain't calling you Pa," Clara said finally. "I ain't asking you to. And if you hurt any of them, you'll kill me. I know. You already told me twice. I just want to make sure you understand." "I understand." "Why?" Silas leaned forward, his expression serious. "Clara, I ain't asking for trust. Trust is earned. I'm asking for time. Time to prove I'm not like the others. Time to show you that not every adult in this world is going to let you down. How much time? Much as you need." Clara studied him, this stranger, with his gray eyes and his grief and his empty house. He wasn't what she'd expected, wasn't hard or cold or calculating. He was broken, just like her, just like all of them. Maybe that was why she believed him. "One night," she said. "We stay one night. Tomorrow we'll decide what comes next." "Fair enough. And I'm sleeping by the door. Anyone comes in, they go through me first. I wouldn't expect anything less." Clara stood, her legs unsteady, after hours of walking and carrying and fighting. She crossed to where the others slept, checking each one. Tommy with his knife still clutched in his fist. Maggie curled around Alice. Sam sprawled across 2 blankets, Jonas, with a book tucked under his arm like a weapon. Her family. Not by blood, but by choice. By survival. By the simple fact that they'd found each other in the darkness and decided to hold on. "Clara." Silas's voice came from behind her. She turned. "You did good," he said quietly. "Getting them this far. Keeping them alive. That wasn't nothing. It wasn't enough. It was everything. They're here because of you. Remember that." Clara didn't respond, but as she settled onto the floor by the door, her back against the wall, her eyes on the room full of sleeping children, something shifted in her chest. Not trust, not yet, but maybe, just maybe, the beginning of hope. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside the walls of Silas Brennan's lonely ranch, 7 heartbeats had joined the one that had been alone too long. and for the first time in 5 years, the silence didn't feel like dying. It felt like the start of something worth living for. Clara woke to the sound of a child screaming. She was on her feet before her eyes fully opened, knife in hand, heart slamming against her ribs. The fire had burned low, casting strange shadows across the room, and for a terrible moment, she couldn't tell which child was making that sound. Then she saw Tommy. He was thrashing on the floor, tangled in his blanket, his fists swinging at something only he could see. His screams weren't words, just raw animal terror pouring out of a 10-year-old body that had seen too much. "Tommy!" Clara dropped beside him, grabbing his shoulders. "Tommy, wake up!" His fist connected with her jaw. Pain exploded across her face, but she held on, pinning his arms, pressing her weight against his chest. "It's me. It's Clara. You're safe." Tommy's eyes flew open. Wild. Unseeing. Still trapped in whatever nightmare had claimed him. "Get off!" He bucked against her, surprisingly strong for someone half-starved. "Get off me. I'll kill you. Tommy." Clara's voice dropped low, steady. The voice she'd learned to use when Maggie had night terrors, when Jonas couldn't breathe, when Sam cried for his mother. "Tommy, look at me. Look at my face. Do you know who I am?" His chest heaved. His eyes darted around the room, the unfamiliar walls, the dying fire, the other children sitting up in their blankets watching with fear-bright eyes. "Clara." His voice cracked. "That's right. It's me. You're safe. We're all safe." "I thought—" Tommy's face crumpled. "I thought he was here, Pa. I thought he was—" "He's not here. He's dead, remember? He can't hurt you anymore." "But I heard him. I heard his voice. He was saying the things he used to say when he—" Tommy stopped. His body went rigid, and then he was crying harsh, ugly sobs that shook his whole frame. Clara pulled him against her chest, wrapping her arms around him, letting him fall apart in the way he never allowed himself to during the day. Across the room, Silas stood in the doorway of his bedroom. He'd heard the screaming had come running, but he'd stopped when he saw Clara take control. She didn't need him, not for this. But their eyes met over Tommy's shaking shoulders, and something passed between them. An understanding. A recognition that these children carried wounds that couldn't be healed with warm beds and hot meals. Silas nodded once, then retreated back into the darkness. Clara held Tommy until the sobs faded to hiccups, until his body went limp with exhaustion, until his breathing evened out into something like sleep. Only then did she look up and realize all the other children were still watching. "Go back to sleep," she said quietly. "Everything's fine." "Is Tommy okay?" Maggie's voice trembled. "He's okay. Just a bad dream." "I have those too," Sam said. "About Mama. About the wolves that—" "Sam." Jonas cut his brother off. "Not now." Sam fell silent, but his eyes stayed fixed on Tommy's sleeping form. 6 years old, and already he understood that they were all carrying nightmares. That the cold outside wasn't the only thing trying to kill them. Clara eased Tommy back onto his blanket, brushing hair from his forehead with gentle fingers. He looked younger in sleep. Softer. The angry, defensive boy replaced by the child he should have been allowed to be. She didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, Silas made breakfast. Clara watched him move around the kitchen, cracking eggs, slicing bacon, stirring something in a pot that smelled like heaven. Her stomach cramped with hunger, but she didn't move from her position by the door. "You can sit," Silas said without turning around. "Ain't gonna poison you." "I'm fine standing." "Suit yourself." He set a plate on the table, eggs, bacon, thick slices of bread. "But the little ones are gonna need you strong today. Might want to eat while you can." Clara's jaw tightened. She hated that he was right. Hated that her body was betraying her, demanding food when her mind screamed to stay vigilant. She sat. Silas placed another plate in front of her, then moved to wake the children. Clara watched him crouch beside each one, speaking softly, giving them time to orient themselves, before asking them to move. Tommy flinched when Silas touched his shoulder. "Easy," Silas said, pulling back immediately. "Just breakfast. You hungry?" Tommy stared at him, suspicion warring with exhaustion. "You heard me last night, screamin'." "I did." "You think I'm crazy?" "I think you're a boy who's been through hell and come out the other side still breathing. That ain't crazy. That's brave." Tommy's face twisted. "Brave don't wake up screaming like a baby. Brave does whatever it has to do to survive, including letting go sometimes." Silas stood, offering his hand. "Come eat. We'll talk about brave later." Tommy didn't take the hand, but he did get up. Clara counted that as progress. The children gathered around the table like wary animals approaching a waterhole. Maggie helped Alice into a chair. Jonas positioned himself where he could see both doors. Sam climbed onto his seat and immediately grabbed a piece of bacon. "Manners," Clara said automatically. "Sorry." Sam didn't sound sorry at all. He shoved the bacon in his mouth, chewing with his eyes closed. "This is good. This is really good." "There's more," Silas said. "Much as you want." 7 pairs of eyes fixed on him, waiting for the catch. The condition. The price. "I mean it." Silas continued reading their expressions. "Eat until you're full. Ain't no rationing here." Sam reached for another piece of bacon, then another, then another. "Sam, slow down," Clara warned. "You'll make yourself sick." "Don't care?" Sam's voice was muffled by food. "Don't care if I throw it all up. At least I'll know what it feels like to be full." The words hung in the air, simple, devastating. Clara felt her throat tighten. Silas set a plate in front of Alice, who hadn't moved since sitting down. The little girl stared at the food her ragged doll clutched against her chest, her eyes empty. "She don't eat unless I feed her," Maggie said quietly. "Not since Mama died. She just stops." Silas nodded. He cut the eggs into small pieces, then knelt beside Alice's chair. "Hey there, little miss." His voice was gentle, patient. "You don't have to talk. Don't have to do anything you don't want. But I'm gonna leave this fork right here, and if you feel like eating, the food's yours. Nobody's gonna take it from you." Alice didn't respond, didn't look at him, didn't move. Silas didn't push. He simply stood, moved to his own seat, and began eating like this was normal. Like silent, traumatized children were something he encountered every day. Clara watched him. Watched the way he gave Alice space. Watched the way he pretended not to notice when Tommy's hands shook, when Jonas calculated the distance to the nearest exit, when Maggie whispered comfort to a sister who couldn't hear her. This man understood something about broken children. She wanted to know why. After breakfast, the children scattered. Not far, none of them were willing to let the others out of sight, but they moved around the house like explorers mapping unknown territory. Jonas found the bookshelf and stood frozen in front of it, his fingers hovering over spines like he was afraid they'd disappear if he touched them. "You can read 'em," Silas said, coming up beside him. "That's what they're for." "All of them?" "All of them. Even the big ones." Silas glanced at the shelf. Encyclopedia, medical texts, a few volumes of law. Heavy reading for a 12-year-old. "Even the big ones, though I'd recommend startin' with the adventure stories." 3rd shelf down. Jonas pulled out a book with trembling hands. His eyes scanned the first page, and something in his face, something that had been closed off and careful, opened up. "I ain't read anything since we left Missouri," he said quietly. "Pa sold our books for whiskey money. Said they were making me soft." "Books don't make a man soft. They make him smart. And smart's more useful than tough in most situations." Jonas looked up at Silas, really looked at him for the first time. "You believe that?" "I do." "Pa said only women and weaklings read books. Your pa was wrong about a lot of things." Something flickered in Jonas's expression. Surprise maybe at hearing an adult contradict his father so directly. "He was wrong about Clara, too," Jonas said slowly. "Said she'd never amount to nothing. Said girls couldn't lead, couldn't think, Couldn't do anything but cook and clean and make babies. And yet, here she is, Silas said, having led 6 children through a blizzard that killed grown men. Having thought her way out of more trouble than most adults face in a lifetime. Having done the impossible while your pa walked off and gave up. Jonas was quiet for a long moment. Then, I want to be smart like Clara, not strong like Pa. Smart and strong ain't opposites, son. Best people I've known were both. Jonas turned the book over in his hands, considering this. Then he settled into the nearest chair and began to read. Silas left him to it. Outside, Tommy had found the woodpile. He stood in the snow staring at the axe embedded in a stump, his jaw tight with something Clara couldn't read from the window. She pulled on her boots and went to him. "What are you doing?" "Nothing." Tommy didn't look at her. "Just looking. At an axe. Pa used to make me chop wood." Tommy's voice was flat. "Said it would toughen me up. Make me a man. He'd stand behind me and yell if I did it wrong. Sometimes he'd—" The boy stopped. His hands curled into fists at his sides. Clara moved to stand beside him. Not touching, not pushing, just present. "You don't have to chop wood here," she said. "Silas didn't ask you to." "I know. That's what's strange." Tommy finally looked at her confusion, and anger tangled in his expression. "He ain't asked us to do nothing. Ain't told us to work or earn our keep or prove we're useful. He just gives. Food, warmth, shelter. And I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. For him to turn into Pa, but he doesn't. Maybe he won't. Everyone turns into someone bad eventually. That's just how people are." Clara felt something ache in her chest. 10 years old, and Tommy already believed that kindness was a trap. "I used to think that too," she said quietly. "After Pa left us at the wagon train, after Mr. Henderson tried to take our blankets, after every adult who was supposed to protect us failed or ran or died. But then I found you, and Maggie, and the Dawson kids, and I realized that sometimes people don't fail. Sometimes they stay. You stayed because you had to, because no one else would. I stayed because I chose to, because you and Maggie and Sam and Alice and Rosie became my family, and family don't abandon each other." Clara put her hand on Tommy's shoulder. He flinched, but didn't pull away. "Maybe Silas is different. Maybe he's not. But we'll never know if we don't give him a chance to prove it." Tommy was quiet for a long time. His eyes stayed fixed on the axe on the tool that represented everything his father had been. "If he hurts any of them," Tommy finally said, "I'll kill him. I don't care if he's bigger or stronger or—" "I know, and if it comes to that, I'll help you." Tommy looked at her. "You mean it?" "I mean it. But let's hope it doesn't come to that." Inside the house, something crashed. Clara and Tommy were through the door in seconds, ready to fight, ready to protect, ready to die, if that's what it took. What they found was Sam standing in the middle of the kitchen, surrounded by the shattered remains of a ceramic bowl. "I didn't mean to." The boy's voice was panicked, his eyes wild. "I was just trying to help. I wanted to clean up, and I dropped it, and—" He flinched backward, arms coming up to shield his face. Clara's heart shattered. She knew that gesture, knew what it meant. Sam had learned it somewhere from someone in circumstances she didn't want to imagine. Silas moved before Clara could. He crossed the kitchen glass, crunching under his boots, and crouched in front of the cowering boy. "Sam." His voice was calm, gentle. "Look at me." I'm sorry. I'll be more careful. Please don't." "Sam, nobody's gonna hit you. Not for a broken bowl, not for anything." The boy's arms lowered slowly. His eyes met Silas's, filled with tears and terror. "Mama used to say that," Sam whispered. "But then Pa would come home drunk and, I ain't your pa, and I ain't drunk, and that bowl—" Silas gestured at the shattered pieces. "That bowl don't matter. It's just a thing. Things break. What matters is you." "But I ruined it." "You dropped it. Accidents happen." "Pa said there ain't no such thing as accidents. Said if something broke, it was because someone was stupid or careless or, "Your pa was wrong." Silas's voice hardened not at Sam, but at the ghost of a man who'd taught a 6-year-old to fear broken dishes. "He was wrong about a lot of things, and I'm sorry nobody told you that sooner." Sam stared at him, confusion and hope warring in his small face. "You really ain't gonna hit me. I'm really not. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. But how do I know you won't change?" Silas was quiet for a moment. Then he held out his hand, palm up. "You don't know. Not yet. But I'm going to prove it to you, Sam. Every day for as long as you're under this roof, I'm going to show you what a man's supposed to be. And someday, maybe not soon, but someday you'll believe it." Sam looked at the offered hand. Then slowly, tentatively, he took it. Clara watched from the doorway, something tight and painful loosening in her chest. She'd spent 5 days being the only adult these children could trust. 5 days carrying them, protecting them, trying to be enough when she wasn't even sure she'd survive herself. And now, here was this stranger, this broken man with his empty house and his old grief doing exactly what she'd been doing. Exactly what they all needed. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to carry this alone. That night Silas told them about his wife. Not all of it, not the worst parts, but enough. They were gathered around the fire, bellies full, bodies warm. The storm still raging outside, but no longer mattering. Rosie was breathing easier now, sleeping in Clara's arms with color in her cheeks. Alice sat beside Maggie, her doll clutched tight, her eyes still empty, but somehow less distant. "Her name was Sarah," Silas said, staring into the flames. "We met in Pennsylvania before the war. She was the prettiest girl I'd ever seen, and the smartest too. Could argue a man into circles and make him thank her for it." "What happened to her?" Maggie asked softly. "She died, having our baby. The doctors said there was nothing they could do, that sometimes women just bleed, and no amount of prayer or medicine can stop it. And the baby lived 3 days, just long enough for me to hold her, to count her fingers and toes, to promise her everything I had to give. Then she died too. Right here in this house, in the room where Jonas is sleeping." The silence was heavy, but not uncomfortable. These children knew grief, understood it in ways most adults never would. "Is that why you helped us?" Clara asked. "Because we reminded you of her?" "Partly." Silas met her eyes. "But mostly because I couldn't stand by and watch 7 children die when I had the power to stop it. Couldn't add your faces to the ones I already see when I close my eyes. Do you see them a lot? The ones you couldn't save. Every night." Silas's voice roughened. "Every single night for 5 years. I wake up reaching for Sarah, and she's not there. I listen for the baby crying, and there's only silence. I walk through this house, and I feel them everywhere, in the walls, in the furniture, in the empty spaces where they should have been." "That sounds lonely," Tommy said. "It is. Lonelier than anything I ever felt before. Even lonelier than the war, and I spent months in trenches watching my friends die." Tommy was quiet for a moment. Then, "Pa used to hit me when I cried. Said tears were for women and weaklings." "Your pa was wrong." "Everyone keeps saying that. But how do I know? How do I know you ain't just telling me what I want to hear?" Silas stood. He crossed to where Tommy sat, and slowly, carefully, he knelt in front of the boy. "You want proof?" He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a long, jagged scar that ran from wrist to elbow. "This is from Gettysburg. Piece of artillery caught me when our line broke. I laid in that field for 6 hours, bleeding, screaming, crying like a baby. And when they finally pulled me out, you know what my sergeant said?" Tommy shook his head. "He said, 'Any man who can cry in the face of death and still get up the next morning is braver than the ones who can't feel nothing at all.'" Silas rolled his sleeve back down. "Your tears don't make you weak, Tommy. They make you human. And anyone who tells you different ain't worth listening to." Tommy stared at the place where the scar had been. His jaw worked like he was trying to say something, but no words came. Then he did something Clara had never seen him do. He cried. Not the screaming, thrashing sobs of the nightmare. quiet tears rolling down his cheeks, his shoulders shaking with the effort of holding them back. Silas didn't hug him, didn't try to fix it. He just stayed there, kneeling on the floor, being present while a broken boy finally let himself break. Clara watched her own eyes burning and thought, maybe this is what healing looks like. Not fixing, not forgetting, but finally feeling safe enough to fall apart. Later, when the children were asleep and the fire had burned low, Clara found Silas on the porch. He stood in the cold, watching the snow fall, his breath misting in the air. Clara pulled a blanket around her shoulders and joined him. "You're good with them," she said. "Better than I expected." "I've had practice." "With who?" Silas was quiet for a long moment. "There was a girl in our regiment during the war. Couldn't have been more than 12. Her family was dead. Her town burned, and she'd attached herself to us like a stray dog. The other men wanted to send her away, said she'd slow us down, but I couldn't do it. Couldn't look in her eyes and tell her she wasn't worth saving." "What happened to her?" "She died. Fever, probably. We were marching through the rain for days, and she was just too small, too weak. I buried her in a field somewhere in Virginia, and I swore I'd never let another child die on my watch." Clara felt the weight of his words settle over her. "And then you lost your own child anyway." "And then I lost my own child anyway." Silas's voice cracked. "That's the thing about promises, Clara. Sometimes you can't keep them no matter how hard you try." "Is that why you helped us to try again?" "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of being alone with my ghosts." He turned to look at her. "You asked me yesterday why I'd take in 7 strangers. The truth is, I don't know if I'm doing this for you or for me. Maybe both. Maybe neither. But does it matter if the outcome's the same?" Clara considered this. "No, I guess it doesn't." "You trust me yet?" "No." "Good, you shouldn't, not yet." Silas turned back to the snow. "But Clara, I'm going to earn that trust, one day at a time for as long as it takes. And when you finally believe I'm not going to hurt them, not going to hurt you, I want you to know something." "What?" "You don't have to carry this alone anymore. I know you've been the strong one, the one who holds everyone together while you fall apart inside. But you're allowed to lean on someone else now. You're allowed to rest." Clara's throat tightened. She'd been waiting 5 days for someone to say those words. 5 days of being strong because there was no other choice. 5 days of pretending she wasn't terrified, wasn't exhausted, wasn't one breath away from shattering. "I don't know how," she whispered. "I don't know how to let go." "That's okay. We'll figure it out together." They stood in silence, watching the storm rage, 2 broken people holding space for each other's grief. And somewhere inside the warm house, 7 heartbeats slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. The thaw had begun. The storm broke on the 7th day. Clara stood at the window watching the clouds pull apart like torn cotton, revealing a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Sunlight poured across the snow, turning the world into something blinding and new. "We should go to town," Silas said from behind her. "Need supplies, and I need to report you to the marshal." Clara's whole body went rigid. "Report us." "Not like that." Silas held up his hands. "I mean, officially. 7 children don't just appear out of nowhere. There'll be questions, papers to file. If we don't do it proper, someone's gonna come asking why I got a house full of orphans and no documentation. And then what? They take us away, split us up." "Not if I can help it." Clara turned to face him. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to tell the marshal I intend to keep you. All of you, legal-like. Guardian papers adoption if it comes to that." Silas met her eyes. "But Clara, I need you to understand something. The law ain't always kind to arrangements like this. Single man, 7 children, no wife. People are going to talk, going to question, going to try to find reasons why this ain't proper." "Let them try." Clara's voice hardened. "We've survived worse than gossip." "I know you have, but this fight's different. This one happens in courtrooms and church pews, not blizzards. And I need to know you're ready for it." Clara looked at the children scattered around the room. Jonas reading by the fire. Tommy teaching Sam to whittle. Maggie braiding Alice's hair while the silent girl clutched her doll. Rosie sleeping peacefully in a basket near the hearth, her breathing strong and steady. Her family, broken, battered, but alive. "I'm ready," she said. "Whatever it takes." The ride to Laramie took most of the morning. Silas had borrowed a neighbor's wagon large enough for all of them, though the children huddled together like they expected the world to tear them apart at any moment. Clara sat at the front beside Silas, her eyes scanning the horizon for threats that might not exist. "You always this watchful?" Silas asked. "You learn to be when people keep trying to take things from you." "What kinds of things?" "Food, blankets, hope." Clara's jaw tightened. "Mr. Henderson tried to take Maggie once, said a pretty girl like her would fetch a good price in California. I put a knife to his throat and told him I'd gut him if he touched her again." Silas's hands tightened on the reins. "Where's Henderson now?" "Dead, I hope. We left him bleeding by his wagon when we ran. Never looked back." "Good." The word surprised her. Adults didn't usually approve when children talked about violence. "You don't think I was wrong for cutting him? I think you did what you had to do to protect your family. That ain't wrong. That's survival." Clara felt something ease in her chest. She'd been carrying guilt about Henderson for days, wondering if she'd crossed some line that couldn't be uncrossed. Hearing Silas validate her choice didn't erase the weight, but it made it lighter. "There's something I need to tell you," she said quietly. "Before we get to town, before you stand up in front of the marshal and claim us." "I'm listening." "Jonas and me, we ain't legitimate." Clara's voice dropped. "Pa never married Mama proper. Just took up with her after his first wife died. The church back home, they called us bastards. Said we had no right to the family name." "Does Jonas know?" "Yeah. Mama told us before she died. Said it didn't matter that blood was blood regardless of papers. But in the eyes of the law, you're orphans in need of a guardian. That's all that matters." Silas's voice was firm. "Whatever your pa did or didn't do, it don't change who you are. And it sure as hell don't change my intention to keep you." Clara stared at him. "You really don't care." "I care that you've been carrying that shame for years when it ain't yours to carry. I care that some preacher made you feel less than because of choices your parents made. But legitimate, illegitimate, those are just words, Clara. Words that small people use to make themselves feel big." For the first time since her mother died, Clara felt tears threatening to fall. She blinked them back, refusing to cry in front of the children, but something cracked open inside her. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. We still got a town to face." Laramie was bigger than Clara expected. Buildings lined the main street. Some brick, some wood, all wearing the rough-hewn look of a frontier town, still figuring out what it wanted to be. People moved along the sidewalks, their eyes sharp, their conversations stopping as Silas's wagon rolled past. Clara felt their stares like physical weight. 7 children, 1 man, no wife. The whispers started before they even reached the marshal's office. "That's Brennan's wagon. Who are all them kids? Lord have mercy, where'd he find that many orphans? Ain't natural a man alone with that many children." Clara's hands curled into fists. Beside her, Tommy's jaw tightened, and she could see him calculating which of the whisperers he could take in a fight. "Ignore them," Silas said quietly. "Words can't hurt you unless you let them." "Easy for you to say. You ain't the one they're staring at." "They're staring at me too, wondering what kind of man picks up 7 strays in a blizzard." Silas pulled the wagon to a stop in front of a building marked Marshal's Office. "Let them wonder. Let them talk. At the end of the day, we go home together, and they go home to their small lives and smaller minds." The marshal was a man named Cooper, thick-necked and gray-bearded, with eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. He listened to Silas's account without interrupting his gaze moving from face to face, as each child was introduced. 7 of them, he said when Silas finished, all from different families. Clara and Jonas are siblings. Tommy and Maggie are siblings. Sam, Alice, and Rosie are siblings. The wagon train fell apart in the storm. Adults died or ran. These 7 found each other and held on. And you want to keep them, all of them? I do. Cooper leaned back in his chair, studying Silas with an expression Clara couldn't read. You know what people are going to say. Single-man house full of children. Folks'll think. I know what folks'll think. Let them. It ain't that simple, Brennan. There's proper channels for this. Orphanages, church homes, families looking to adopt. Those children have been through hell. Silas's voice hardened. They've watched their parents die. They've been abandoned, threatened, nearly frozen to death. The last thing they need is to be split up and shipped off to strangers who see them as labor or charity. And you see them as what exactly? Family. The word hung in the air. Clara watched the marshal's face, searching for judgment, for dismissal, for all the ways adults had failed them before. What she found was something else entirely. I knew your wife, Cooper said quietly. Sarah. She used to bring pie to the office every Christmas. Said you were the best man she'd ever known. Silas's jaw tightened. She was too kind. She was honest. And I trust her judgment. Cooper pulled out a stack of papers. I'll file the guardian documents today. You'll be their legal protector until they come of age, or until you petition for full adoption. But Brennan, if I hear even a whisper of mistreatment, you won't. Make sure I don't. The papers took an hour to complete. Each child's name, each child's age, each child's origin written down in official ink, making real what had been impossible a week ago. Clara watched Silas sign document after document, his hand steady, his commitment unwavering. When it was done, Cooper handed Clara a copy of her own guardian papers. You're official now, he said. Silas Brennan's ward under the protection of Wyoming territory law. Clara stared at the paper, her name written in careful script, her age, her status ward of Silas Brennan. She'd never had papers before, never had proof that she belonged anywhere. Thank you, she managed. Don't thank me. Thank the man who's taking on 7 mouths to feed in the dead of winter. Cooper's eyes softened. You're a lucky girl, Miss Whitmore. Don't forget it. Lucky. The word felt wrong considering everything they'd lost. But looking at Silas, at the children gathered around her, at the future that suddenly seemed possible, maybe luck wasn't the right word. Maybe the right word was hope. They were leaving the marshal's office when the trouble found them. A man stepped into their path, tall and thin, wearing the black coat and white collar of a preacher. His eyes swept over the children with an expression that made Clara's skin crawl. Mr. Brennan. His voice was smooth, practiced. I heard you'd taken in some strays. Reverend Crane. Silas's tone went flat. Didn't know you were in town. I go where the Lord calls me, and it seems he's called me here to address this situation. Crane's gaze fixed on Clara, then moved to Tommy, to Jonas, to each child in turn. 7 orphans is a heavy burden for one man. Perhaps the church could help lighten it. I don't need the church's help. Oh, but surely you do. A single man raising children alone, it's not proper, not natural. Crane smiled, but his eyes stayed cold. The Blessed Home for Wayward Children in Cheyenne would be happy to take them. Good Christian upbringing, honest work, a chance to learn discipline and gratitude. They ain't wayward, and they ain't going to Cheyenne. Mr. Brennan, I must insist. The welfare of these children is my concern, not yours. Crane's smile faltered. You're making a mistake. The law may have given you guardianship, but public opinion is another matter. People talk, Mr. Brennan. They wonder what a man like you wants with 7 children. They wonder if your intentions are pure. Clara stepped forward before she could stop herself. His intentions saved our lives. Crane looked at her like he was seeing a bug that had learned to speak. The adults are talking child. I ain't a child, and I ain't going to your orphanage. Clara's voice shook, but not with fear, with rage. I know about places like that. I know what happens to children who get sent there. The work that breaks their backs, the discipline that breaks their spirits. I'd rather freeze to death in a blizzard than let you take us. Such fire. Crane's eyes glittered. Clearly you haven't learned proper respect for your elders. The blessed home would cure you of that. Enough. Silas moved between Clara and the preacher, his body a wall. These children are mine. Legally, morally, every way that matters. You want them, you go through the marshal, through the courts, through me. But I promise you, Reverend, you come for my family, and you'll find out what kind of man I really am. The threat hung in the air, quiet, but unmistakable. Crane's smile didn't waver, but something flickered behind his eyes. Calculation, patience, the look of a predator who knew how to wait. We'll see, Mr. Brennan, we'll see. He stepped aside, allowing them to pass, but Clara felt his gaze on her back all the way to the wagon. Watching, planning, waiting. Who was that? Tommy asked as Silas helped the children into the wagon. Nobody worth worrying about. He didn't seem like nobody. He seemed like trouble. He is trouble. Silas climbed onto the driver's seat, his jaw tight. But he's trouble for another day. Right now we're going home. Home. The word still felt strange to Clara. Foreign. Like a language she'd forgotten how to speak. But as the wagon rolled out of Laramie, leaving the whispers and stares behind, she realized something had changed. For the first time in months, she wasn't running from something. She was running toward it. That night, after the children were asleep, Clara found Silas sitting by the fire. He looked older in the flickering light, tired, the weight of the day written across his features. The preacher, Clara said, settling into the chair across from him. He's not going to give up, is he? No. Men like Crane, they don't give up. They wait. They watch. They look for weakness. What does he want with us? Silas was quiet for a moment. The blessed home ain't what he says it is. It's a workhouse. Children go in, and they don't come out until they're too old to be useful. Crane gets paid by the territory for every orphan he takes in, and he gets free labor in the bargain. That's monstrous. That's business, and in a territory where orphans are common and oversight is scarce, business is good. Clara felt sick. How do you know all this? Because I've seen the children who escape, seen the scars on their backs, the emptiness in their eyes. I've tried to stop him before, but he's got powerful friends, church money, political connections. The law looks the other way because it's easier than fighting. But you're fighting now, for us. I'm fighting now. Silas met her eyes. Because this time I've got something worth fighting for. Clara felt her throat tighten. What if you lose? What if he takes us anyway? Then I'll come get you. Every last one of you. I don't care if I have to burn down his orphanage with my own 2 hands. You do that. Risk everything. Clara, I've been waiting 5 years for something to risk everything for. You and those children, you're the first thing that's mattered since Sarah died. I ain't letting you go without a fight. The words settled over her like a blanket. Warm, safe, real. I believe you, she said quietly. Silas blinked. What? I believe you. That you won't hurt us. That you'll protect us. That you mean what you say. Clara's voice steadied. I ain't sure about much in this world, Silas, but I'm sure about that. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Silas smiled a real smile, the first Clara had seen since they'd arrived. Thank you, he said. That means more than you know. Don't get soft on me. We've still got a preacher to fight. We do. But we'll fight him together. Together. Another word that had felt foreign for so long. But here in this warm house, surrounded by sleeping children and crackling fire, and a man who'd chosen to stand between them and the world together, felt possible. Together felt like something worth believing in. 3 weeks passed before Reverend Crane made his move. Clara was in the barn helping Tommy feed the horses when she heard the wagon wheels. Her whole body went cold. She knew that sound, the creak of an official carriage, the kind that carried lawyers and lawmen and people who took children away. "Stay here," she told Tommy. "Keep the others inside." "Clara, do it." She ran toward the house, her boots slipping on the frozen ground. Silas was already on the porch, his shoulders squared, his face carved from stone. Two men climbed down from the wagon. One wore a marshal's badge. The other wore Reverend Crane's cold smile. "Mr. Brennan." The marshal, not Cooper. Clara realized with a sinking heart, but someone younger, harder, held out a folded paper. "I have a court order requiring you to surrender the minor children currently in your care to the custody of Reverend Ezekiel Crane, representative of the Blessed Home for Wayward Children." "On what grounds?" "Concerns have been raised about the suitability of your guardianship. A single man, no wife, no experience with children. The territory has determined that these orphans would be better served in a proper Christian institution." "The territory." Silas's voice was flat. "Or Crane's friends in Cheyenne." The marshal's jaw tightened. "The order is legal, Mr. Brennan. You can comply voluntarily or I can enforce it. Over my dead body." "That can be arranged." Crane stepped forward, his smile widening. "Though I'd prefer not to traumatize the children with violence. They've suffered enough already." Clara's hands curled into fists. She wanted to scream, to fight, to tear that smile off Crane's face with her bare hands. But she forced herself to think, to calculate, to find the weakness. "You can't take us," she said, stepping onto the porch beside Silas. "We have guardian papers, filed with Marshal Cooper, legal and proper." "Those papers have been challenged." Crane's eyes glittered. "New evidence has come to light regarding Mr. Brennan's character. Questions about his mental state, his drinking, his interest in young girls." "That's a lie." "Is it?" Crane tilted his head. "A single man taking in 7 children, including 4 girls, with no witnesses to vouch for his behavior. The court found the concerns credible enough to issue this order." Clara felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. This wasn't about legal documents or proper channels. This was about power, the kind that could twist truth into whatever shape it needed to be. "I ain't drunk a drop in 5 years," Silas said, his voice tight with controlled fury. "And my interest in these children is nothing but decent. I'm their guardian, their protector, nothing more." "So you say. But the court requires proof, not words." Crane gestured to the marshal. "If you resist, Mr. Brennan, you'll be arrested for obstruction. The children will be taken regardless. Is that what you want?" Silas's hands trembled. Clara could see him calculating the odds, 1 man against 2, with 7 children watching 7 children who would see their protector dragged away in chains. "Don't." She grabbed his arm. "Silas, don't. We'll figure something else out." "Clara, if they arrest you, we lose everything. We lose you." Her voice cracked. We can't." The door behind them opened. Tommy stepped out, followed by Jonas, followed by Maggie, still holding Alice's hand. Sam came last, carrying Rosie, his small face pale but determined. "What's happening?" Jonas asked, his eyes darting between the adults. "These men want to take us away," Clara said. "To an orphanage." "No." Tommy's voice was hard. "No, we ain't going. You don't have a choice, boy." The marshal rested his hand on his pistol. "The law says—" "I don't care what the law says." Tommy stepped in front of his sisters, his whole body shaking. "The law didn't save us when our parents died. The law didn't find us in that blizzard. Silas did. He's ours now, and you can't have him." Crane's smile faltered for just a moment. He hadn't expected resistance, not from children, not from the people he saw as cargo to be collected. "Such passion," he said, recovering quickly. "But passion doesn't change facts. Mr. Brennan is unfit. The court has decided. You will come with us." "No." The word came from somewhere unexpected. Everyone turned. Alice stood at the edge of the porch, her ragged doll clutched to her chest, her empty eyes suddenly blazing with something fierce. "No," she said again. Her voice was rusty, unused, barely louder than a whisper, but it cut through the silence like a blade. "He's good. He's ours. You can't take him." Clara's heart stopped. Alice hadn't spoken since her mother died. Not one word in weeks of grief and silence. And now when everything was falling apart, she'd found her voice. For Silas. For them. "The child is clearly disturbed." Crane waved his hand dismissively. "Another reason why professional care is needed." "She ain't disturbed." Sam's voice trembled with anger. "She's scared. She's been scared since Mama died, and now you're trying to take the only safe place we got. How is that Christian? How is that good? Children cannot understand." "I understand fine." Sam thrust Rosie into Jonas's arms and marched toward Crane, 6 years old and furious. "I understand that you want to take us away from someone who loves us. I understand that you don't care what we want. I understand that you're a bad man pretending to be good, and I ain't going anywhere with you." Crane's face reddened. For a moment, Clara saw something ugly flash behind his eyes, the real man beneath the smooth words and practiced smiles. "Marshal," he said tightly, "control these children." The marshal stepped forward, reaching for Sam's arm. Tommy moved faster. He put himself between Sam and the marshal, his pocket knife in his hand, his eyes wild. "Touch him, and I'll cut you." "Tommy, no." Clara lunged for him, grabbing his wrist before he could do something they couldn't take back. "Stop. This isn't the way." "Then what do we do?" Tommy's voice cracked. "I promised I'd protect them. I promised—" I know. Clara pulled him close, holding him tight, even as he struggled. "But if you hurt that man, they'll take you away forever. They'll put you in a cell and we'll never see you again. Is that what you want?" The fight went out of Tommy. He slumped against her, the knife falling from his fingers into the snow. "I don't want to lose you," he whispered. "I don't want to lose anyone else." "You won't, I promise." Clara looked up at Silas, at the marshal, at Crane, with his triumphant smile. "But right now, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Tommy nodded. Clara released him and stepped forward, positioning herself between her family and the men who wanted to tear them apart. "You want us to come with you," she said, her voice steady. "Fine, but I have conditions." Crane's eyebrows rose. "You're not in a position to make conditions." "I'm in a position to make this very, very difficult. I can fight. These children can fight. We can scream and scratch and bite every step of the way from here to Cheyenne. Or—" Clara paused, letting the word hang. "Or you can give us 1 week. 1 week. To say goodbye. To get our things in order. To prepare the little ones for the transition." Clara forced herself to meet Crane's eyes to hide the calculation behind a mask of resignation. "You want 7 compliant children. Give us time to accept what's happening. Otherwise you'll have 7 wild animals who'll make your life hell." Crane studied her for a long moment. Behind her, Clara could feel the others watching Silas tense with unspoken words. Tommy trembling with suppressed rage. Jonas calculating Maggie crying softly. 3 days, Crane said finally. "You have 3 days to prepare. Then we return, and you come without resistance. A week. 4 days, final offer." Crane's smile returned. "Don't mistake my patience for weakness, child. I've broken stronger spirits than yours." Clara felt ice crawl up her spine, but she kept her face neutral, her voice calm. 4 days. We'll be ready." Crane nodded to the marshal, and they climbed back into the wagon. As it rolled away, Clara allowed herself 1 breath. 2. Then Silas's hand landed on her shoulder. "What are you doing?" His voice was low, urgent. 4 days ain't enough time to— 4 days is all we need." Clara turned to face him. "You said Crane has friends in Cheyenne. What about enemies, anyone who'd want to see him fall?" Silas's eyes narrowed. "There's a judge in Denver, Harrison. He investigated the Blessed Home a few years back, tried to shut it down. Crane's friends buried the report, but Harrison never forgot. Can you reach him in 4 days? Maybe. The telegraph? Then send a message. Tell him what's happening. Tell him we need help. Clara. Even if Harrison comes, there's no guarantee. I know. Clara looked at the children gathered on the porch, at the family she'd built from broken pieces and desperate hope. But it's a chance. And right now, a chance is all we've got. The next 4 days were the longest of Clara's life. Silas rode to Laramie twice, sending telegrams, calling in favors, doing everything he could to summon help before time ran out. Clara held things together at the ranch, keeping the children calm, keeping them fed, keeping them from falling apart. But at night, when the house was quiet and the fire burned low, she allowed herself to feel the terror she couldn't show them during the day. What if Harrison didn't come? What if they lost? What if this family she'd fought so hard to build was torn apart anyway, scattered to orphanages and workhouses, lost to each other forever? On the third night, Tommy found her crying. She was sitting on the porch, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs she couldn't contain anymore. She didn't hear him approach, didn't know he was there until he sat down beside her. Clara. She scrubbed her face, trying to hide the evidence. Go back to bed. You shouldn't be out here. Neither should you. Tommy was quiet for a moment. You're scared. I ain't. Don't lie to me. You taught me that we don't lie to family. Clara's throat tightened. She looked at this boy, this fierce, damaged, loyal boy who'd trusted her when he had every reason not to trust anyone, and felt the last of her walls crumble. Yeah, she whispered. I'm scared. Me too. Tommy stared out at the darkness. I keep thinking about what happens if they take us, if we get split up, if I never see Maggie again, or Sam or you. That's not gonna happen. You don't know that. I know I'll fight with everything I have to stop it. Clara reached for his hand. And I know that whatever happens, wherever they send us, we'll find each other again. That's what family does. They find their way back. Tommy's fingers tightened around hers. You really believe that? I have to, because the alternative is giving up, and I ain't ready to give up yet. Clara stood, pulling him with her. Come on. We should sleep. Tomorrow's gonna be hard. Clara. Yeah. Thank you. For everything. For finding us in that wagon. For keeping us alive. For being our... Why? He hesitated. For being what you are. Clara felt tears threatening again, but she blinked them back. You don't need to thank me, Tommy. You're my brother now. Same as Jonas. Same as all of them. Blood or no blood. Blood or no blood. They went inside together, and for one more night, the family held. On the fourth day, the wagons came. Not just Crane's wagon. 3 of them carrying men with badges and rifles, carrying chains and locks, carrying the full weight of a system designed to crush anyone who stood in its way. Clara stood on the porch with the others, her heart pounding, her hands steady. Beside her, Silas was a wall of controlled fury. Behind her, the children waited, silent, terrified, but together. Time's up, Mr. Brennan. Crane stepped down from the lead wagon, his smile wider than ever. I trust the children are ready. They ain't going anywhere. We've been through this. The court. The court can go to hell. Crane's smile flickered. Arrest him. 2 men moved forward. Silas didn't run, didn't fight. He just stood there, letting them put chains on his wrists, his eyes never leaving Clara's face. It's okay, he said quietly. It's gonna be okay. No. Tommy lunged forward, but Jonas grabbed him, held him back. No, you can't take him. You can't. Be strong. Silas's voice cut through Tommy's screaming. All of you, be strong and stick together. I'll find you, I swear it. No matter what happens, I'll find you. The men dragged him toward the wagon. Clara felt something inside her breaking, shattering, falling apart. And then she heard hoofbeats. A rider was coming down the road. Fast. Urgent. Behind him a carriage followed, official and imposing. Crane turned his face, going pale. No, he breathed. No, that's not possible. The rider reached them first, a young man in a deputy's uniform, his horse lathered with sweat. "Stop." He held up a paper, his voice ringing across the yard. "By order of Judge William Harrison of the Denver District Court, these proceedings are suspended pending investigation into corruption charges against Reverend Ezekiel Crane." The world went silent. Then the carriage door opened and an old man stepped out, white-haired, sharp-eyed, carrying himself with the kind of authority that came from decades of fighting for justice. "Reverend Crane." Judge Harrison's voice was cold. "We meet again." Crane's mask cracked completely. This is outrageous. You have no jurisdiction here." "I have jurisdiction wherever children are being trafficked under the guise of charity." Harrison gestured to the deputies who'd accompanied him. "Search his records. Interview the children at the blessed home. I want every piece of evidence that exists against this man." "You can't do this." "I can, and I will." Harrison turned to the men holding Silas. "Release him, now." The chains fell away. Silas stumbled forward, his eyes finding Clara's disbelief and hope warring in his expression. "It's over," Clara whispered. "It's really over." "Not yet." Silas pulled her close, pulled all of them close, Tommy and Jonas and Maggie and Alice and Sam and Rosie, holding them tight like he'd never let go. "But it's starting to be." Crane was still screaming as they led him away, still insisting on his innocence, still promising retribution. But his power was broken, his mask shattered, and the children he'd tried to take were safe. For now. Forever, if Clara had anything to say about it. That night, after the officials left and the children were asleep, Clara found Silas on the porch. He was staring at the stars, his face wet with tears he hadn't bothered to hide. "You came back," she said softly. "I wasn't sure you would. I promised I'd find you, no matter what. I know, but promises are easy. Keeping them is hard." Silas turned to look at her. "You saved us, Clara. That plan of yours, buying time, sending for Harrison, you saved all of us. We saved each other." Clara moved to stand beside him. "That's what family does." "Family." Silas smiled, tired, raw, real. "I never thought I'd have that again. After Sarah, after the baby, I thought that part of my life was over." "It's just beginning." Clara took his hand. "All of it. For all of us." They stood together in the darkness, two broken people who'd found something worth fighting for. And somewhere inside the warm house, 7 hearts beat in rhythm with theirs. A family. Imperfect. Impossible beautiful. Worth every scar. 2 years changed everything. Clara stood at the kitchen window, watching the children scatter across the yard like seeds blown by the wind. Tommy was teaching Sam to rope a fence post. Maggie was braiding wildflowers into Alice's hair, while the younger girl laughed, actually laughed. A sound that still made Clara's heart catch every time she heard it. Jonas sat on the porch steps, nose buried in a law book Silas had ordered from Denver. And Rosie. Rosie was walking now, toddling after the older children on stubby legs, her voice rising in delighted shrieks whenever someone scooped her up. 2 years since the blizzard. 2 years since a stranger tore open their wagon door and offered them a chance at survival. 2 years of healing, of growing, of becoming something none of them had dared to hope for. A family. "You're thinking too loud." Silas's voice came from behind her. "I can hear it from across the room." Clara smiled without turning around. "Just remembering." "Remembering what?" "The wagon, the cold, how certain I was that we were all going to die." She finally looked at him, this man who'd given them everything, who'd fought for them when no one else would. "I keep waiting to wake up, to find out this was all a dream." "It ain't a dream." Silas moved to stand beside her. "It's real, all of it. I know. But sometimes real feels harder to believe than dreams." Outside, Tommy's rope finally caught the fence post. Sam whooped with triumph, and Tommy grinned a real grin, the kind that had been impossible 2 years ago when every smile was a mask and every laugh was a lie. "He's different," Clara said softly. Tommy, he doesn't flinch anymore when you raise your voice. Took a while. It took patience. Most men wouldn't have had it. Most men ain't lost what I lost. When you've buried your own child, you learn what matters. And what matters is giving these kids something better than what they had. Clara felt her throat tighten. She'd never told him, never found the words how much his patience had meant. Not just to Tommy, but to all of them. To her. Silas. Yeah? Thank you. For everything. For saving us, for fighting for us, for being... She stopped, the words tangling in her chest. For being what? Clara turned to face him. She was 16 now, nearly a woman, and the world looked different than it had at 14. Clearer. More honest. For being our father, she said. In every way that matters. Silas's eyes went bright. He looked away, clearing his throat, but not before Clara saw the tear sliding down his weathered cheek. You don't have to call me that, he said roughly. I told you from the start. I know what you told me, but I'm telling you now, you're our father. Mine, Jonas's, Tommy's, all of them. And I'm tired of pretending otherwise. Clara. You earned it. Her voice strengthened. Every day for 2 years you earned it. You don't get to refuse it anymore. Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled her into a hug, rough, awkward, real. All right, he whispered. All right. They stood like that, until the children's voices pulled them apart, until the world demanded their attention again. But something had shifted, something final, like a door closing on the past and opening on the future. Father, daughter, family. The words had found their home. That evening, they gathered around the table for dinner. It was a ritual now, all 9 of them crowded together, passing plates, talking over each other, filling the house with the kind of noise Silas had thought he'd never hear again. I caught 3 fish today, Sam announced proudly. 3. That's more than Tommy caught. I wasn't fishing. Tommy rolled his eyes. I was fixing the fence you broke. I didn't break it. The cow broke it. The cow broke it because you left the gate open. Enough. Clara's voice cut through the argument, but she was smiling. Both of you eat. We can assign blame later. Jonas looked up from his plate. I finished the first section of Blackstone's commentaries today. Silas. Did you know that property law in the territories is based on English common law from the 1760s? I did not know that. It's fascinating. The way precedent builds on precedent, creating a structure of justice that spans centuries. Jonas. Maggie threw a roll at him. Nobody wants a law lecture at dinner. Some of us find it interesting. Some of us are wrong. Alice giggled, soft, still rare, but growing more frequent every week. She'd started talking again 6 months ago, just single words at first, then sentences, then whole conversations. The silence that had swallowed her was finally releasing its grip. I like Jonas's lectures, she said quietly. They make me feel smart. Jonas beamed. See, Alice appreciates intellectual discourse. Alice is 8. She appreciates anyone who pays attention to her. That's not enough. Silas's voice was firm but warm. Jonas, you can lecture me about property law after dinner. Maggie, stop throwing food. Sam, close your mouth when you chew. And Tommy? He paused, his expression softening. Good job on that fence. It looks better than when I built it. Tommy ducked his head, but Clara caught the flush of pride on his cheeks. Praise still surprised him. Probably always would. But he was learning to accept it, learning that not every compliment came with strings attached. Rosie banged her spoon on the table, demanding attention. At 2 years old, she was the center of everything, the baby they'd almost lost, the miracle they'd fought to keep. More, she demanded. More food. You've had 3 helpings already, Clara said, but she was already reaching for the serving spoon. Where do you put it all? She's growing, Silas said. Let her eat. She's going to eat us out of house and home. Then I'll buy a bigger house. Clara laughed a real laugh, full and unguarded. She couldn't remember when laughing had become easy again, but somewhere in the last 2 years it had. They all had. After dinner, while the younger children washed dishes, Clara found Jonas on the porch. He was staring at the stars, his law book forgotten beside him. 16 now, tall and thin, with their mother's eyes and their father's stubborn jaw. "What are you thinking about?" Clara asked, settling beside him. "The future." Jonas didn't look at her. "Silas says he can send me to school in Denver next year. Real school, with professors and examinations and other students who actually want to learn." "That's wonderful." "Is it?" Jonas finally turned to face her. "I'd be leaving. All of you. For months at a time." "We'd survive." "I know, but—" He hesitated. "What if I come back and everything's different? What if you don't need me anymore?" Clara reached for his hand. "Jonas, you spent 2 years being the smartest person in this house. You helped Silas with the legal papers. You taught Sam to read. You figured out the irrigation system when everyone else gave up. We will always need you." "But I won't be here." "You'll be becoming someone who can help even more. A lawyer, maybe. Someone who can fight for families like ours, who can stop men like Crane before they hurt anyone else." Jonas was quiet for a moment. "Is that why you want me to go, so I can fight?" "I want you to go because you deserve the chance. Because Mama would have wanted you to have it. Because—" Clara's voice caught. "Because you're my brother, and I want you to be happy, even if that means letting you go." Jonas squeezed her hand. "I'll come back. Every summer. Every holiday. I'll write letters every week." "You better, if I have to track you down in Denver." "You won't." He smiled, the uncertain smile of someone stepping toward a future they couldn't quite see. "I'll always come home, Clara. This is where I belong." Home. The word didn't feel foreign anymore. It felt like truth. The next morning, Tommy asked Silas to teach him to shoot. They stood in the back field, a row of tin cans lined up on the fence, the rifle heavy in Tommy's 12-year-old hands. "Steady," Silas said. "Don't jerk the trigger. Squeeze it gentle, like you're shaking hands with someone you respect." Tommy took a breath, sighted down the barrel, squeezed. The can flew off the fence. "Good." Silas clapped him on the shoulder. "Again." They practiced for an hour until Tommy's arms ached and his ears rang. But he didn't complain, didn't ask to stop. Just kept shooting, kept improving, kept proving something to himself. "Why'd you want to learn this?" Silas asked as they walked back toward the house. "You ain't never shown interest in guns before." Tommy was quiet for a long moment. "Because Pa used to say I'd never be good at anything. Said I was weak, useless, a waste of space." His jaw tightened. "I wanted to prove him wrong." "You proved him wrong the day you stood between your sisters in that blizzard. The day you held a knife to a stranger's chest and said you'd die before you let anyone hurt your family. You didn't need a gun to prove your worth, Tommy. You already had it." "Then why teach me?" "Because you asked. And because a man should know how to protect what he loves, even if he hopes he never has to." Silas stopped, turning to face the boy. "But here's the truth, son. The gun ain't what makes you strong. This is." He touched Tommy's chest, right over his heart. "This is what made you stand up when grown men ran. This is what made you protect those children when everyone else abandoned them. This is what makes you family." Tommy's eyes went bright. He looked away, blinking hard. "I ain't never had someone believe in me before," he said quietly. "Not like you do." "Then it's about time someone started." They walked back to the house in comfortable silence. Two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of broken lives and built something new. Something worth believing in. On Clara's 17th birthday, Silas gave her a gift. It was a small wooden box carved with flowers and vines, clearly handmade. Inside lay a simple gold ring. "It was Sarah's," Silas said, his voice rough. "Her mother gave it to her on her 17th birthday. She always said she'd pass it on to her daughter someday." Clara's hands trembled. I can't take this. You can. You're my daughter, Clara. Maybe not by blood, but in every way that matters. And Sarah would have loved you, would have been proud of the woman you've become. Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. She'd thought she was done crying, thought the well had run dry years ago. But these tears were different. Not grief, not fear. Joy. I'll take care of it, she whispered. I promise. I know you will. Silas pulled her into a hug. Happy birthday, sweetheart. The word sweetheart cracked something open in Clara's chest. Her father had never called her anything but her name. Her mother had tried, but the endearments always felt stolen, borrowed from a life they couldn't afford. But Silas meant it. Every word, every gesture, every moment of the last 2 years, he meant all of it. I love you, Clara said. The words came out rough, unpracticed. She'd never said them to anyone but her mother. I love you, and I'm grateful, and I don't know how to... You don't have to know how. Silas's voice was thick. You just have to let me love you back. That evening they celebrated with cake and laughter. All 8 of them crowded around the table, Silas at the head, Clara at his right, the children filling every other space. They sang off-key and told bad jokes and argued about who got the biggest piece of cake. It was chaos. It was perfect. Speech, Sam demanded, banging his fork on the table. Clara has to make a speech. I don't have to do anything. It's tradition. Since when? Since now. Clara looked around the table at the faces watching her. Tommy, who'd learned to smile again. Jonas, who'd found his voice. Maggie, who mothered everyone whether they wanted it or not. Alice, who'd climbed out of silence into light. Sam, who'd never stopped believing things could be good. Rosie, who'd never known anything but love. And Silas, the stranger who'd become their father. The broken man who'd let them heal him. 2 years ago, Clara said slowly, I was holding a knife to a stranger's chest, ready to die to protect the children behind me. I didn't believe in anything, not hope, not safety, not the future. I'd learned the hard way that the world was cruel and people couldn't be trusted, and the only person I could count on was myself. She paused, her throat tight. I was wrong. The room went silent. I was wrong about all of it, about hope, about trust, about what family means. Clara looked at Silas. A real family isn't just the people who share your blood. It's the people who choose you, who fight for you, who show up every day and prove that you matter. You all are my family, every one of you, and I don't care what the world says about how we came together or whether it's proper or normal. What we have is real. What we have is forever. She raised her glass of milk. They didn't have champagne, but it didn't matter. To family, she said. The one we built, the one that saved us, the one that will never ever break. To family, they echoed. And in that moment, in that warm house filled with voices and laughter and love, Clara finally understood what she'd been searching for all along. Not safety, not survival, not even happiness. Home. She'd found her way home. Years later, when Clara was an old woman with gray hair and weathered hands, her grandchildren would ask her about the story, about the blizzard, about the wagon, about the stranger who'd opened the door and changed everything. And she would tell them about the cold that had tried to kill them, about the fear that had almost won, about the moment she'd lowered her knife and chosen to trust someone she had no reason to trust. She would tell them about Tommy, who became a rancher like Silas, who raised his own children with gentleness instead of violence, who broke the cycle his father had started. She would tell them about Jonas, who went to Denver and became a lawyer who spent his life fighting for orphans and widows and anyone the system tried to forget. She would tell them about Maggie, who married a schoolteacher and filled her house with books and music and laughter. She would tell them about Alice, who learned to speak again, who found her voice and used it to sing songs that made people weep with beauty. She would tell them about Sam, who never lost his joy, who grew into a man who saw wonder in everything and helped others see it too. She would tell them about Rosie the baby, who almost died in the cold, who lived to have babies of her own, who named her first daughter Sarah and her first son Silas. And she would tell them about the man who saved them all. Silas Brennan, who found 7 orphans in a blizzard and gave them a future. Who fought for them when no one else would. Who proved that family wasn't about blood or law or circumstance. It was about choice. He died peacefully at 72, surrounded by the children he'd raised and the grandchildren they'd given him. His last words were to Clara, whispered so softly she had to lean close to hear. "Thank you," he said, "for letting me be your father." They buried him on the hill behind the ranch next to Sarah and the baby he'd lost so many years ago. Clara spoke at the funeral, her voice steady despite the tears. "He used to say that family is something you build, not something you're born into," she told the crowd. He was right, but what he didn't say, what he showed us every day, is that building a family takes courage. It takes patience. It takes the willingness to love people who've forgotten how to be loved. She looked at her siblings, at their children, at the generations that would carry Silas's legacy forward. He gave us everything, and the best way to honor that gift is to pass it on, to choose love over fear, to choose family over loneliness, to choose hope, even when hope feels impossible. Clara placed her hand on the fresh earth, feeling the warmth of the summer sun, remembering the cold that had brought them together. "Rest now," she whispered. "You earned it." And as she walked back toward the house that had sheltered them, healed them, made them whole, Clara knew one thing with absolute certainty. The blizzard had tried to kill them, but love was stronger. Love would always be stronger. And the family Silas Brennan built in the ruins of loss and grief would endure for generations, a testament to the simple truth that had saved them all. No one is truly lost if someone chooses to find them. No one is truly alone if someone chooses to stay. And home isn't a place you discover. Home is a promise you keep.